All right, ladies and gents, welcome to our next episode of Unleash Greatness. My name is Justin Borg. Super excited for today because we are moving into part two of the 10 most controversial topics in health and fitness. Now, as I mentioned in the previous pod, we went into ChatGPT, fed it a heap of information, and it spat out the top 10 most controversial topics in health and fitness today. And I'm excited that we're moving into part two. So we're going to be doing 5 down to 1. If you want to listen to the previous podcast where we covered 10 down to 6, then go for it. Previous pod, we're going to head straight into today's episode. So I am super excited for it. So let's get cracking. All right, let's talk about number 5, the recovery obsession. Why it's so hot right now is from ice baths to red light therapy. Recovery is definitely booming. I have some thoughts on this, however. Controversy as people over prioritizing recovery tools and under training, or are they vital for longevity? Here is my thought processes on this one. So we have seen recovery centers opening up all over the shop here in Perth, and we've also seen them shut down. And it's a really interesting vibe at the moment because I certainly do believe there is an extreme amount of value in ice bath, sauna, etc., which is what recovery is generally pointing at. And contrast therapy is, I believe, probably one of the best ways to recover. So going and sitting in a sauna has a lot of benefits for sure. Going and doing a sauna, ice bath, I believe has even better benefits from the studies that we have seen. And I'm just thinking from a physical perspective, okay? So if you are recovering from a tough training session, right? The muscles are sore, you're feeling a little stiff. What do you need to do? You need to get oxygen into those areas. Oxygen travels via the blood. So when we jump in a sauna, we open up the blood vessels to allow more blood to flow into certain areas. When we jump in an ice bath, it restricts the blood vessels and the body starts to prioritize where is the blood required because it goes into fight or flight mode. So it's going to suck all the blood to the vital areas of the body that it needs to survive. So if you've got a sore calf, jumping into an ice bath from the cold aspect is not going to do a great deal for your calf because the body is going to prioritize where the blood goes. It's going to go to the parts where it needs to keep itself alive. So things like the vital organs, your brain, etc. When you jump out of that ice bath, however, and then maybe jump into a sauna, we go from a very constricted blood vessel to a very open and dilated blood vessel, which means more blood can flow into that area, which in turn is exactly what we are looking for when it comes to physical recovery. So in the ice bath, sore calf, blood gets restricted, not exactly what we want. However, when we jump out and we get in the sauna and it dilates, we get a rush of blood into the calf, and that delivers oxygen and everything that we require for that calf to recover. And that's what we're looking for there, right? That's from a physical perspective. Let's now talk from a mental perspective. So I have done ice baths specifically from a mental and stress perspective. And a lot of ice baths in recovery centers are actually not set up for this because you cannot get to the vagus nerve in the back of the neck. And once you can get to that, then you are more likely to get that hormone release and your stress levels will come down because that's going straight to your brain. Now, I've done some really weird things in regards to ice baths. People wouldn't know this, but I will generally, if I can, I like to use a long ice bath where I can have my feet and my hands on the outside, and I will lower myself in, bum first, into that ice bath. And I like to try and keep my feet and my hands out. There are no benefits to unless you've got an injury, of course, to your feet or your hands being in an ice bath. They are your extremities and they will feel the cold the most. So if you can keep them out, you are going to have a much better ice bath experience. And if you can lay down and get the back of your neck in, then you can start to get some release through the brain, and that will help from a stress perspective. Having done that, I certainly did feel value in that, and that is something that I do continue to do. What we have seen, however, is recovery centers opening and closing because they're just an ice bath and compression and a sauna. That's all they are. And they're a very isolating experience, which is good for some, but not necessarily great for everyone. What we need to understand is what do we need it for? What are we doing from a recovery perspective? Because I'll be very, very honest. In Australia, less than 20% of the population have an active lifestyle where they are exercising on a regular basis. They're probably not exercising at an intensity that actually requires this level of recovery. Recovery like this has generally been more in the sports realm rather than in the gym side of things. But there are certainly benefits to both. But if we can't get people to exercise well, if we can't get people to sleep consistently, if we can't get people to eat well, then recovery becomes almost null and void. Because those three things, exercise, your first ports of call with recovery are your nutrition and your sleep. But what happens? People eat shit food, people don't sleep well, so they look for that next opportunity, and it could be a recovery center. There is loads and loads and loads of studies showing the value of contrast therapy and, in particular, saunas. Ice baths, still a lot coming out in regards to that. But like I said to you before, from a contrast therapy point of view, I see great value in them. But we need to get the other parts of our lifestyle heading in the right direction before we even think about, do I need to be going to a recovery center? That being said, as a fitness facility owner, recovery is something that I continue to look into and something that we do wish to implement very, very soon, but in a very specific way so that there are a multitude of benefits for our members. So that's recovery obsession. That's number 5 in our list. All right, let's talk about number 4. This topic is all over the place right now, and for very, very good reason. Women and lifting heavy is controversial topic number 4. Why is this controversial? This shouldn't be controversial. This is a reality of the modern lifestyle that we are in. Women should be able to lift heavy. Women should lift heavy. Women will focus on different areas of the body, primarily to males, upper body, lower body, all right, generally. But I feel that this is controversial because there have been years and years and decades and decades and decades of conditioning in regards to you'll get bulky if you lift heavy. And we know, and as much as we know that this is a complete lie, okay, it is still something that has been passed through generations, and it is very hard to break that generational cycle. The other thing that we need to consider is, for a long, long time, the weights area of a gym has generally, because of this conditioning, been a male-dominated area. And so design, vibe, etc., have been very much geared towards men. So women have maybe felt a little bit out of place. If you went to a gym as a female and went to lift weights and the gym had 20 guys in it and you walked into the free weights area, all right, that potentially could be a little intimidating. I can see that. And so what we need to do is we need to really start to focus on creating a more inclusive gym environment where women feel comfortable walking in and lifting. One of the ways that this can be done is in group environments. I own a small group training facility, as you all know, Beyond Limits. Okay. And the reality of that is that probably close to 65, if not more, percent of our members are women. And guess what we do? We lift heavy weights. A lot of what we do is based around weight training, strength training. What we're also seeing is with the rise and rise of information around women and strength training, women in their late 30s, 40s, perimenopausal, menopausal women are starting to go, all right, I need to start lifting weights. Because what we do know, and I've said this before, is when we go through transition periods in our life, and for women, one of the biggest transitional periods is menopause. Okay. If you have been following our 5 pillars of sleeping well, eating well, moving on the regular, exercising and lifting, doing strength training, what we do now know is the symptoms of the menopausal symptoms can be lessened. All right. So, yes, you'll still go through menopause, but the symptoms may not be as severe. Now, everyone's different. I always say everyone will have a different experience, but it's the same as when a female goes through pregnancy, right? Women that have trained for a long period of time up to pregnancy generally will have a better pregnancy and they'll bounce back through postpartum a lot quicker. And I have seen that in our facility. The women that start later are the ones that do tend to have to put in a lot more effort. As we get older, we have to put in a lot more effort to get the results. As a guy, when you're in your 20s, you can eat crap food. As long as you're lifting heavy, you'll get results. I can't eat crap food anymore. Otherwise, it don't work. All right. So I need to dial in my nutrition a lot more now. And we're seeing that as well for women. What we need to do, in my eyes, what needs to happen for that next step is we need to start to ditch the male language and the segregation when it comes to fitness facilities. We need to create a more inclusive environment. Like, let's talk CrossFit as an example. We have an RX weight for men and an RX weight for women. So different weights for different sexes. We have what's referred to as the male bars and the female bars. The male bar is 20 kilos, the female bar is 15 kilos. Why is it not just referred to as a 20 kilo bar and a 15 kilo bar, and the 15 kilo bar is thinner for people that have smaller hands? As someone who doesn't have the biggest hands, I absolutely love doing barbell snatches with a 15 kilo bar because I feel like I have a much better grip on the bar. Yet, when I enter a CrossFit competition, and this has happened to me in the past, I've asked, can I use a 15 kilo bar? And I've been told no. Why have I been told no? Is it because it's male and female? We need to start to ditch this segregation and we need to start to have a more inclusive environment for women to be able to train and lift heavy. I think there's a lot of things that need to change from a gym culture perspective around that. I could go into this topic for a lot. It does lead down a lot of different paths, but we'll leave it at that point there. Women, you need to lift heavy. It shouldn't be a controversial topic. Let's get into it. Number 3 on our list of the top 10 most controversial things is, what is real fitness? I love this as well. This is really, really great. Now, I'm going to give you my definition of fitness. In my eyes, fitness covers a lot of different areas: muscular strength, muscular endurance, and cardiovascular capacity. They are the 3 things, in my eyes, that determine your level of fitness. Why this is controversial again is because we have social media. The fitness industry was built around aesthetics. People that wanted to get on stage and look a certain way, looking shredded, looking ripped, taking whatever supplements were required to look a certain way, to be judged, etc. That is what fitness was built around, and that is not real fitness. There's a big difference between aesthetics and real fitness. If there was anything that has been able to quantify fitness, it would be CrossFit, lift heavy, move fast, etc. The fittest on earth is one of the taglines. And I do 100% get that. All right. There's more there from a strength perspective and a cardiovascular perspective than a guy that can stand on stage in a bikini and hit a double bicep pose. That's not real fitness. I will say it every single day. And maybe the word fitness in regards to the fitness industry needs to change. That's my view on that. The industry has really done a bad job when it comes to what I would consider fitness and health. Because if you are fit and healthy, and I believe the two do go together, then your body composition to a certain extent becomes null and void. Because I can tell you now, I've said, like I said, I don't see how being a very, very low body fat, let's talk females for a moment, being in a very, very, very low body fat where you lose your menstrual cycle, which is part of normal life, can be considered, well, it's can be considered fitness. It's not fitness. I don't know why it's healthy, and I don't know why it's even something that is looked at. But that's where it's at. I think we need to be more authentic. We need to look at sustainability. At our facility, we are all about lifestyle and longevity. Our goal is to make sure that you can continue to do the things that you love to do for the rest of your life. And that's the whole purpose of that. So that is number 3. What is real fitness? There we go. Topic number 2, another topic that I'm really passionate about is AI and virtual trainers. The number 2 most controversial topic there is when it comes to health and fitness. Why is it so hot right now is because we've got all these AI apps and platforms are replacing personal trainers, supposedly. They can create personalized plans and form corrections. And I actually believe that that is not the case. They cannot do that. All right. But they can certainly create a plan. And what I'm going to, where it's controversial, according to ChatGPT, is because will this replace real trainers? I tend to disagree. As humans, as a living being, we are very, very good at going and trying something new and then coming back to what we know. And that comes around because of our physiology. The human body has been exactly the same for thousands and thousands of years. Society has moved fast in the last 100 years, but our physical being has not. It is exactly the same. And so we are tribal creatures who love connection. And this is where I believe that while from an online perspective of program design, I do believe that AI and online will, and virtual will certainly start to take over that in from that perspective, potentially. What it will not replace is face-to-face. We love face-to-face. We love connection. How many people have been like, I'm going to have a home gym. They've bought a home gym and it's become their clothesline. Why? Because it's overly convenient and there's no connection for a lot of people. It takes a very, very small disciplined number of people to train in a gym at their house. We are going to continue to, and I believe we will see the return and rise of face-to-face community style training. As much as AI might take over the back end, I do not believe it will ever replace face-to-face training and face-to-face gyms. I believe that they will continue on. I still believe we live in a very tactile industry and real-time correction cannot be done by AI. If someone is in a gym, in a facility, and they are performing a rep incorrectly, who's going to fix it so they don't hurt themselves? Now, don't get me wrong. There's always going to be people that train on their own and they might be doing things wrong. But that is the role of the trainer. The number one goal of a trainer is for the safety of their client. The last thing a trainer wants is for a client to get injured because then they stop training. The last thing you want is to get injured because then you stop training. So I believe that while AI and virtual trainers might take over from a program design perspective. I do not believe that they will take over from an actual coaching perspective. Real-time coaching is invaluable and that will never be taken over. So that's AI and virtual trainers. Number one, the most controversial health and fitness topic of 2025 is the rise of Ozempic and GLP-1 drugs. Why is it hot right now? Because medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, semaglutide are being widely used for weight loss, often by people not classified as obese. That's interesting. Okay. Fitness professionals like myself often argue that it's a quick fix that undermines long-term lifestyle changes, while others see it as a legitimate tool to kickstart change. So, often when something comes out or something is relatively new, and this is still very, very new for a lot of people because it's been very commercialized and etc. recently, we go into how is this going to impact me? For so many years and still now, when you talk to someone who's considering joining a gym, the first thing they'll say is, I need to lose a few kilos. And while that should never be the reason to join a gym, that is what people will say. So if that's what people are still wanting to do, feeling that they need to do, the first thing they need to do is look at their diet and lifestyle. Then maybe join the gym. But people will go to the quick fix. Ozempic, whatever it may be, is touted as a quick fix. We're starting to see this being sold in America right now. You can join up to F45's online platform and access these GLP-1 drugs in conjunction with. Okay. And I don't have anything against the use of these drugs. I was like, people need to sort out their lifestyle first and foremost, and then get into this. I was angry because there was reports that there was a lack of these substances available for the people that like really needed it, like type 1 diabetics. And that really did frustrate me. And I believe that there is certainly a place for them. I am very open to things like this now. I used to be very close-minded about it until I've seen people go through the significant change, not just from these drugs, but people that may have had gastric surgery, and the ones that have done it right. And this is where the controversy comes in, right? If you are a couch potato who's overweight and sucking down soft, highly processed foods and soft drinks every day, and then you pump yourself with a needle and expect that you're going to get great results, it's not going to happen. I have seen people lose a crap load of weight because it is obviously an appetite suppressant, but they look gaunt, they look skinny, they've lost muscle. And that's not what this should be used for. What we do understand is that if you are using these style of drugs, you will lose lean tissue. So you will lose muscle as well as body fat as you go through the process. And as a longevity coach, I want people to build, maintain, or gain and maintain as much muscle as they can so that when they are 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years old, they can still do the things that they love to do. This is what improving quality of life is all about. Now, the people that are doing it well are the ones that are using it as a little bit of a kickstart or as a supplement. Okay, let's just call it what it is. It's a supplement, right? I'm eating well. I'm training regularly. My diet's on point. My lifestyle factors are in check. I'm going to use this to help me along the way. And from that perspective, that's where I sit in regards to these kind of drugs. Is we still don't know a huge amount about them. There's still a lot of research coming out, a lot of studies coming out. You know, it's almost like a COVID vaccination, you know, just take it before it's proven. I didn't go there, did I? I certainly did. But what we do know is that you can get some great results with these. I would always recommend that you're doing this through a doctor, not through any other channel. But you must combine it with the other lifestyle factors, because are you going to continue to take this for the rest of your life? These are the things we don't know. We don't know about the long-term effect of using Ozempic or weight loss drugs. All right. We only have a very short window that we can currently study. I don't know if there's anyone out there that's taking these things, that's going to be taking these things for 10, 20, 30 years. What I find really, really interesting as well is the doses that are being given out. And now I don't know enough about these to get too specific, but I know that, I was at a networking event, and someone mentioned that they were using it, and we were there with some nutritionists, and they asked what's the dose, and the dose was said, and the nutritionist turned around and goes, "That's not going to do anything." So I found that quite an interesting comment. I believe that there is a transition period. The body needs to, not get used to it, but go through that process. But imagine, like, doctors are giving out these drugs at such a small dose that aren't actually going to do anything. So you're spending money on something that's actually not doing anything for you. I also know people that have had issues in regards to kidney. We do know there's quite a few side effects that you may potentially have. Some people experience no side effects. Again, it's like most drugs, right? What works for one doesn't work for everyone. But is there a place for this? I believe there is. I'm certainly not against modern medicine and its ability to help us continue to live a healthy lifestyle, because if someone can use Ozempic and it's going to take them away from type 2 diabetes, reduce their risk of heart disease, reduce pain and inflammation in their joints because they're no longer overweight and obese, then why would I be against that? Okay. But like I said, as long as it's being used in conjunction with the lifestyle factors that we know we need to do, so that if and when we come off the Ozempic, we don't just go straight back to where we were. So, guys, that is your top 5 most controversial health and fitness topics as from ChatGPT. I can't wait to share our next episode with you. But for me, for now, that's it. Take care. See you later.